Meatball lived a life of predictable patterns. He woke at 6 o'clock sharp, 2 sugars in his coffee, toast with precisely measured peanut butter. His life was a symphony of routine. This predictability was comforting. It was safe. His girlfriend, Chipper, was the opposite. She thrived on spontaneity. Her laughter was infectious, her spirit a whirlwind of energy. She brought chaos to Meatball's order. He secretly loved it. One Tuesday, everything changed. Meatball told Chipper about the clone. She laughed. He glared. This was serious. His safe, predictable life was crumbling. They decided to investigate. Where do you even begin to look for a rogue clone? Libraries seemed like a good place to start. Days blurred into weeks. They scoured old newspapers, dusty archives, and forgotten journals. Nothing. Meatball was ready to give up. This was hopeless. Chipper, however, refused to quit. She shoved a faded newspaper clipping into his hand. "Don't you see?" she exclaimed, pointing to a blurry image of a man in a lab coat. The caption read, "Dr. Alistair Finch, pioneer in genetic engineering." The library became their sanctuary. Hours were spent hunched over ancient texts. They delved into the realms of genetics, cloning, and the mysteries of DNA. The more they learned, the more questions arose. It was a labyrinth of knowledge. Meatball felt a knot of anxiety growing in his stomach. Who was this Dr. Finch, and what did he have to do with Meatball's existence? The comfortable predictability of his life seemed a distant memory. Just when their hope began to dwindle, Chipper stumbled upon a breakthrough. An obscure scientific journal contained a cryptic article about Dr. Finch's research. It mentioned a hidden laboratory on the outskirts of the city. The article mentioned a name, Chilled. He was a former lab assistant. They needed to find him. Their search led them to a dingy bar in the city's underbelly. The air was thick with cigarette smoke and despair. Chilled was a shell of a man, haunted by his past. He initially refused to talk. Chipper, however, possessed a unique ability to chip away at people's defences. She coaxed his story out of him. Chilled revealed the horrific truth. Dr. Finch's experiments weren't benevolent. He was obsessed with immortality, creating clones in his pursuit of cheating death. Chilled regretted his involvement. He agreed to lead them to the lab. Section 5. The Alleyway Revelation, a Hidden Lab. They followed Chilled through a labyrinth of dark alleyways. The stench of decay filled the air. Rain began to fall, mirroring their growing unease. Finally, they reached an unmarked door. Inside, the lab was a scene from a nightmare. Glass cylinders lined the walls, each containing a grotesque, unformed creature. Beakers bubbled with strange concoctions. The air crackled with a sinister energy. And then Meatball saw them, rows upon rows of clones. Some looked like him. Others were grotesque mockeries of human life. His reflection in a nearby cylinder rippled. It wasn't his face anymore. It was a horrifying amalgamation of features. He stumbled back aghast. Section 6. Reflections and flashbacks, Meatball's true identity. Memories flooded back, unbidden and unwelcome. A sterile white room, a blinding light, a feeling of utter helplessness. Meatball collapsed, clutching his head. His carefully constructed reality was shattering. He wasn't who he thought he was. The truth was far more sinister. He was a clone, an experiment gone wrong. Dr. Finch's pursuit of immortality had created a nightmare, and Meatball was trapped in the middle of it. A figure emerged from the shadows. Tall, imposing, with eyes that burned with an unholy intelligence, the man radiated an aura of chilling authority. This was Dr. Alistair Finch. Section 7. The Scientist, a Harbinger of Truth. Dr. Finch regarded Meatball with a cold curiosity. He spoke, his voice smooth like velvet. "Ah, Subject 77, it seems you've awakened." Meatball lunged, fueled by a potent cocktail of fear and anger. Chipper, ever the voice of reason, pulled Meatball back. She addressed Dr. Finch, her voice remarkably calm. "We want answers. Who is he? What is this place?" Dr. Finch, intrigued by Chipper's composure, gestured for them to follow. He led them to a pristine office, a stark contrast to the horrors of the lab. He offered them refreshments, which they refused. He began to explain. His work wasn't about evil, it was about progress. Humanity had limits. He sought to transcend those limits. Cloning, he argued, was the key to unlocking humanity's true potential. Section 8. The weight of choice. Protect or expose. Meatball listened, torn. Part of him wanted to despise this man. The other part couldn't help but be drawn in by his words. He looked at Chipper. Her expression was unreadable. Dr. Finch made them an offer. Stay silent. In return, he would help Meatball understand his origins. He would give him a life free from the constraints of his past. Meatball was faced with an impossible choice. Expose Dr. Finch and his work to the world, or protect him, ensuring that his horrific experiments remained hidden. The weight of this decision threatened to crush him. Section 9. The cliffhanger. A choice deferred. Meatball looked from the scientist's cold, calculating eyes to Chipper's worried face. His heart pounded in his chest. This wasn't just about him anymore. It was about the future of humanity. What would he choose? To be continued. Subscribe to our newsletter to read the next chapter and unravel the mysteries of Meatball's clone mystery.